And guess what, Clave? We're live with the punch list right now.
Live.
We're talking about ear pods and AirPods and Tide Pods when we really should be talking about the nerdy news of the past week.
That's
Uh,
right.
I'm here with Clave. Always a pleasure to talk the news with our resident nerd on Earth, which is a website that you can check out and see the punch list. I don't know how you're here if you don't know anything about Nerds on Earth, but welcome. Glad to have you. And we'll break down the top 7 nerdy news articles for the past week to keep you up to date and in the loop, or at a bare minimum, a week behind the news cycle, because that's what we do. We aim to please. So if we're going to talk news, we might as well start with number 7.
I'm not ready to start.
You
I
know,
want
right?
to talk about the number seven first. Do you know why we do seven, Abram? Do you know the lore?
I
We got to
don't.
talk lore first.
Yeah, okay, let's talk lore, and I'll leave it to the lore master to
So
explain.
speaking of nerds on Earth, started because we're a bunch of buddies, and as buddies, we would talk nerdy things and make lists as nerds do, and we would email back and forth our lists of whatever. And one of the things that we did was X-Men, our favorite X-Men, who would be on the best X-Men team. And we limited it to seven because any fewer would break our hearts. We would have to leave off too many awesome X-Men. But any more, and how could you write a character with, I mean, a comic with so many characters? And so
Right.
we're like seven feels like like a good solid team. And so since then, we're like, hey, if seven is a good number of X-Men characters, then it's going to be a great number for Nerds on Earth. And so Nerds on Earth, we always do sevens. So you're welcome for that little bit of lore. I know you were wondering, and now you wonder no more.
I do not wonder any longer. And I mean, you have your story. I've always heard it as it's the Sinister Six plus Spider Man is 7. So I mean, potato tomato.
And that could be it.
So that's why we're doing 7. Speaking of number 7, hot news from last week: Marvel Unlimited has fast tracked your new titles right into your ear holes, because you can actually, previously you'd have to wait after a new comic comes out 6 months before you'd see that on the digital Marvel Unlimited platform. But guess what? It is now 3 months. Clave, how many more comics will you read because of this? Go.
A lot. Maybe not, because honestly, I read a bunch of 80s and 90s and 70s comics anyway. So it's not like I'm limited to the latest and greatest. I'll read any Marvel comics. And I'm not a mathematician, but I will tell you that I own a state math record in the 8th grade.
Wow.
So that has never been beaten. But I went to school in West Virginia, so it's not like the competition was fierce. But still, I own a state math record. And I can tell you that 3 months is less than 6 months, which is great, which gets us closer to same day digital and in our comic shop. So I think it's good. I think six months didn't feel like a long time to have to wait to the newest comics for me. Because again, I I dabble in the old stuff anyway. And but there were times when like you're in a current season and you'll kind of sit in the shops and you're like, gosh, I wish that'd be on Marvel Unlimited. Because if you don't do Marvel Unlimited, if you're a nerd, it is the best use of money that I can think of. So you can get the yearly pass, which is about $60, and it literally has tens of thousands of Marvel comics. So if you want some entertainment, if you want a good bang for your buck in entertainment dollars, I mean, if you can read 10,000 comics in a month, have at it. And you can. And they have titles from Stan Lee's and Jack Kirby on until 3 months ago.
Yeah, and also to mention, they do have like a free week trial too, so you can
Yeah.
like play around on the platform. You can see what's on there. Is there something for me? The answer is yes. We'll just
Yeah.
answer that for you. But
All
I mean, it's super accessible, and you're not really locked in either.
yeah. All of us nerds, we've gifted around Marvel Unlimited subscriptions to each other, and just because we all use it and love it. And good point on that free trial. Try it for a week, and you're like, gosh, man, like I've read whatever comics this week, and you got them all. You got them all. It's so great. I love it.
Plus, I love the way it's presented digitally too. So like it'll show you, frame by frame, or on some of those big spreads, it'll, as it's going through the speech bubbles, it zooms in, zooms in, zooms in, but then it'll zoom out on the whole thing. So it just the way it's presented too is just really like it puts you in the comic, and it's really cool.
Listen, man. I'm an old grognard that I've been bagging and boarding comics and collecting them in my long boxes for decades. So I'm the last person to say digital comics, but it's awesome. I mean, Marvel Unlimited is really awesome. You can have your Dead Tree comics, which are wonderful, but you can also catch up and burn through just a lot of great reading in Marvel Unlimited. I can't recommend it enough. It's great.
Same here. So 3 months is half of 6. So go ahead and
According to my math.
check it out. We have a 8th grade record holder for mathematics in the house. So we'll try to keep things, in my realm, on the very commoner, plebeian levels. So there you have it. Number 6. Got a little. We're gonna get a little litigious because Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman are suing. They're going after a behemoth, Wizards of the Coast, because of disputes. What is it? Breach of contract over the Dragonlance novels that have been around forever and ever. So they wanted a new trilogy. This is as I understand it. I'm not a lawyer, and I've also just read the punch list. But they want to expand with a brand new trilogy. But at the same time, Wizards has put a stop to their production. So the writers are seeking damages for Wizards of the Coast to fulfill their original contract of allowing this new trilogy of books to occur in the Dragonlance series. That's what I have on this. This is very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so the Hickmans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Tracy Hickman and Dragonlance novels. Man, I kind of hate to talk about lawsuits because that just feels gossipy. Does this feel news or gossipy?
This feels like
what do I do with? But Dragonlance novels. I mean, there were a lot of folks who got into D&D as a kid reading those Dragonlance novels. They were a big deal, and they were much beloved, and so I think there would be a lot of people who would want to have more, and young audiences. And the Hickmans recently. I know Tracy worked on Curse of Strahd early in D&D 5e's. That might be what they're most known for is Ravenloft, is Curse of Strahd Ravenloft, right? Mm-hmm. Their classic Ravenloft from back in the day that was updated in Curse of Strahd, whereas Tracy worked as a consultant on that. So they've been engaged with D&D 5e within the last several years. So this is interesting. They must have had negotiations around new novels that fell apart, but there aren't very many new books, new D&D books. There are some Dritz books from Bob Salvatore, but
apart from that, there aren't really.
There aren't that many, and there aren't that many books in the fantasy realm from that either, because our connections at Paizo, they've told us that they have Pathfinder books that have been sitting there, that are written sitting there, and it's just the publishing industry is just a tough place to get these types of books out into the marketplace. So I don't know any more than that, other than there's financial considerations in the publishing, and that there hasn't been a lot of green lights there anywhere,
right?
In the industry. So this is fascinating to hear. You hate to talk about a lawsuit because that's not. I don't know. That feels gossipy. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't wish.
We're not speaking at the water cooler. We're talking nerdy news. So who knows? What the real ending of that's going to be, but. It's just something to keep in mind, as you have more, there's a lot of really good fantasy series out there, but at the same time, it's very much an oversaturated market because everybody wants to write about fantasy because it's like it could be whatever you want.
Yeah.
So it's but for something such a long-standing Dragonlance series setting, etc. It's interesting that that's not something that's just like automatically greenlit like you might think. Like let's just keep pumping out some Dragonlance books. So there you have it. We'll keep you updated on that once we find out the result of that in 3 years plus.
Right. That's the other thing. It's like, is this news or are we going to not hear anything for years because it's mired in the courts?
And then in a future punch list, we'll say, remember that time we talked about the Dragonlance breach of contract potentially?
Pack those courts with D&D fans.
All right, I'm about to make a ruling. Roll for verdict.
This has got fun.
I got my D20s right here. I'm ready to roll. Number 5 on the punch list. We'll never get through this. Michael B. Jordan is set to produce a Static Shock movie for DC Comics. Michael B. Jordan, of course, who was Killmonger in Black Panther, is now on DC. So he's sort of dabbling in both waters now. He's going to be a producer. And so Static Shock, I don't know much about comics to begin with, let alone DC Comics as much. But I believe it's about a kid who can control electromagnetic fields, is my understanding. And so no timeline for production or release or anything because COVID probably. But that's really good to hear that we're getting some more comics. And maybe DC has always been doing that sort of dark, gritty stuff lately, and this sounds like something that might be a little bit more uplifting or positive.
Yeah. Well, you're afraid we won't get through the punch list because we're going too slow, but this will be quick because I don't know who that is. All I have to say is I love Michael B. Jordan. Like I love Killmonger. Love it. As an actor, it's great, but I don't know a thing about the character, so that's all I got to say.
All right. Well, there we go. We knocked it out. Static Shock movie coming at some point.
We're speeding up.
We got to slow down. Grab the dice. Number 4, Dexter Limited Series is coming to Showtime. So Showtime has greenlit a 10-episode series that canonically takes place after the ending of Season 8, which a large contingent of the Dexter fan base just did not like, sort of including yours truly. So this isn't, they claim it's not a season 9. It is, it's going to take place however much, if it's been 10 years since season 8 came out, it'll be, 10 years into the future. So, time has passed and it's sort of another finale that, perhaps will sweeten the sour taste that was left in other people's mouths.
That's fascinating.
A finale of a finale.
I've never seen it. I don't have cable, so I haven't watched the show, but I know the general premise, and I think what's interesting and what you explained to me is like they're just making new endings. They're like, hey, if you didn't like this one, it's like selling paintings to a rich guy. It's like, you like this one? No, okay. How about this one? No, okay. How about this? And it's like release the Dexter cut, right?
Yeah, yes.
And it's been the past couple of years with that sort of thing has been fascinating. That when you make a thing, that it's like, hey, if you don't like that, we'll do it again.
It's like Game of Thrones. It's like Game of Thrones ending. Everyone's like, what happened in the past season? Yeah. So I would not be surprised if they do. There's been rumor that Dexter would be a show that would potentially do that. They've been talking about this for years, or people have been rumoring and hypothesizing that they may do it. So the fact that it's being done, I can't think of many shows that do this or have done this. But if they start opening the door for that, I mean, almost guarantee could we see another Game of Thrones ending? Could we see?
It is fascinating. Because you have nerds that on this hand, they're like, all we get are sequels. Everything is derivative. They're just making the same thing. We don't ever get any new stuff. And then over here, they're like, we didn't like that. Could you make it again? And so I'm like, which hand is right here? Like, this is interesting.
That is a very good point. Nerds are definitely known to do that. I don't know. Like as a fan, I'm super excited for it because I didn't necessarily like the ending, and it depending on how they do it, they're saying we're not replacing. Everything that happened, it happened. So it's not like they're saying don't watch season 8, watch season 8.0, 8.1. So
interesting.
I don't know. Very interesting.
So I'm like, have you heard of Chew, the comic book Chew?
Mm-mm.
So he's a private detective, and he solves crimes by eating flesh.
Oh.
So Chew. It's a supernatural, weird sort of thing. But so it's kind of got this Dexterish vibe to it. Like he saw, and I'm like, instead of more like, how about we get Chew? Like, can we get? Chew has been in development, stuck in development for years. I'm like, so
Let's
my point is,
Chew.
like,
that sounds super
interesting,
interesting,
right?
There's so much stuff.
Fun. Yeah, I don't know. We're nerds.
Yeah.
We're weird, all of us.
Give us all the content. We just want content, really. That's all we want. This number 4 headline could be really any show. We'd say, bring us more.
Totally. Release the hashtag. Release the Snyder Cut.
Release the Snyder Cut. Number 3. Oh, that's coming fall 2021 allegedly. So, in the not too distant future. Number 3, Chris Hemsworth and Anya Taylor-Joy are starring in Fury Road prequel movie titled Furiosa.
Get out of here.
Furiosa, prequel to Fury Road, which would canonically...
That movie was awesome.
That was a super good movie. I would say one of the best Mad Max movies, even though Max wasn't necessarily.
Hey, let's take this road trip and then turn around and come back.
Okay.
It's like the most simple thing ever, and it was awesome.
Yes. Where do you want to take a road trip to?
I don't know. That's the whole plot of Fury Road. Like, took a road trip, turned around, came right back.
Came back. That's all you need. I mean,
That's
I love.
And you got a movie, and it's awesome.
I watch.
And there's a bard.
So it's the Bard.
Prequel?
It's a prequel to Fury Road, which would actually make it technically Mad Max, the 4th canonical movie, right? Because there's the first, the first,
and
3,
and it has Thor in it.
It's got Thor. What more do you really need?
Love it.
Thory
like
Road. That's what I'd call it. But they'll call it Furiosa because that makes more sense.
Whatever.
So super exciting. I love the Mad Max franchise. It's just interesting world building. Number 2 on the punch list, we're going. Actually, the last 3 are all show related. So Disney Plus is developing a Willow TV series with Warwick Davis returning. So the 1988 film getting a revival through Disney Plus as a TV series. Ron
Howard attached?
He is serving as executive producer as John M. Chu directs. So that'll be through Lucasfilm again. It'll be their first non-Star Wars title since 2015's Strange Magic, which I'm sure we all remember fondly. I have no idea. Never heard of it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad to see there's Willow and on Disney Plus because I loved that when I was about my kid's age. So
Willow's
I hope it's
really
great,
good.
and I hope my kids love it.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be just as magical as the movie. How could it not? And number 1, movie trailer unleashed. We usually end with a movie trailer. So Monster Hunter the movie is huge, big budget, based as in the same franchise as the video game series Monster Hunter, and so it got its first trailer you can watch over at the Punch List, and it is directed by Paul W.S. Anderson and is coming out actually in December of this year. So watch that. It's got a very much a sort of kaiju feel to it because you've got these huge monsters, and So if you're into that sort of thing, I mean, this would be right up your alley.
Huh. So I've never played the video game, but if this movie doesn't star The Rock, I'm out.
I'm gonna burst your bubble. It does not star The Rock at all.
I'm out.
You're out.
I'm out.
You can't have
Doesn't it just seem like it should star The Rock?
It needs a big. If you had a big budget action movie, it has to star The Rock.
Yeah, I want the biggest, most beautiful man I can think of to star in this movie with fighting monsters, hunting monsters.
Hunting monsters.
Right, that's fun.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'll probably see it at some point. Depends how it's released. Who knows how it'll be released?
Remember theaters? Oh, simpler times.
We think about it fondly. Let's just run through it one more time. The hot takes for those of you that skip to the end to see what we're talking about, even though it's up on the screen the whole time. Number 7, Marvel Unlimited is fast-tracking new titles from 6 months to 3 months. Number 6, Wizards of the Coast being sued by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman over breach of contract. Shh, it's gossip. Number 5, Michael B. Jordan is producing Static Shock movie for DC. Number 4, Dexter limited series coming to Showtime to be a season 9. Well, actually, sorry, he directly quotes, this isn't Dexter season 9, but it is. Number 3, Chris Hemsworth and Anya Taylor-Joy starring in Furiosa, the Fury Road prequel. Number 2, Disney Plus is developing a Willow TV series with Warwick Davis returning to reprise his role. And number 1, you can check out the Monster Hunter trailer for the movie coming out in December of this year. And that, my friends, is the news.
It's the punch list.
It's the punch list. I think you're itching to make a theme song for the punch list. It's sort of like an 80s.
I'm just thinking about hunting monsters.
With The Rock side by side.
That'd be awesome.
Oh man, that's my dream every night, pretty much.
With this beard and his muscles, what could go wrong?
That'd be a great tagline for a movie. With his beard and his muscles, what could go wrong? And then cut to a comedic part of the movie, and then December 2020.
Boom.
There you go. This is the good.
Probably
it's the last punch list because Clave's acting career is taking off. He's had to bigger and brighter things.
I forgot I'm going to be a mathematician.
Oh, that's right. He's a star mathematician. He's an actor. What can't he do? With that beard, what can't he do?
Abram, you're awesome, buddy.
You too, Clave. It's a pleasure talking news. We'll talk to you later, nerds.
Right. Later, nerds.